Okay, I want to thank everybody for joining us for today's live webinar entitled Insights to Succeed Throughout the Regulatory Information Management Journey. Today's presentation is brought to you by Astrix and presented by Heather Adenolfi, who I'll introduce in just a moment. We can go to the next slide, Heather. Before we get into the actual content today, I want to take a moment and just briefly introduce who Astrix is. If you haven't been fortunate enough to been on any of our webinars yet, we do webinars on a very regular basis, and we bring in industry experts from within Astrix because we have plenty here, like Heather, and from outside the organization as well to lend their insights as to what's happening in the life science arena in a variety of different topics, categories, and technologies, if you will. So as far as who is we are, why do we present this? Well, we are a company that for the better part of 25 years has brought our unique breadth of highly specialized services, processes, and technology, which has enabled Astrix to be a leading partner in transforming the ways that science-based businesses succeed. So we are a consulting firm that works with science-based businesses. We were established in 1995 and are vendor and platform agnostic. We don't adhere to any one vendor's technology. We adhere to the principles of helping our customers choose the right technology based on their unique set of circumstances. We have locations throughout the US and overseas. We have 1,200 employees, of 90% of which hold advanced science degrees, which is something that we actually place a very high premium on, and are headquartered in Red Bank, New Jersey. Clients that we help, the type of clients that we help, startups to Fortune 1000. So we work with small to large. We help life science enterprises, chemical companies, CPG, government agencies, and research institutions. So that's a little bit about who we are. In terms of what we deliver in services, we can go to the next slide, Heather. I'll tell you a little bit about that. We have what we call a service spectrum. We support the continuum of scientific operations and data management. And within that spectrum, there's going to be different things that we do, from strategic innovation roadmaps through enterprise architecture. These are going to be where we're helping people to define what their needs are and define what their technology stack should look like and how to map people, process, and technologies to that. We help with data management and governance, and we help with business analysis. On the data management and governance side of the fence, it's making sure that obviously you're following the right protocols that have been passed down from the regulatory bodies. On the business analysis, we ensure people, process, technology are all optimized to transform end-to-end workflows. Solution selection. This is where we can help you pick the right technologies based on things that we may have found out in the earlier services. Development, implementation, validation. We can install these solutions for you. We can tune them up, and we can make sure that they're properly validated. And then finally, something that's kind of unique to Astrix is that we also provide scientific and technical staffing. So we can provide folks to not only manage the systems that we've put in place, but we also can help you staff your laboratory. So that's an interesting aspect of our business. So that's a little bit about the services we provide. We'll go ahead and transition over to our presentation now, and I want to take a moment and introduce our speaker, Heather. Heather leads clients in program management and optimization in regulatory, pharmacovigilance, and related organizations. She brings to today's conversation over 10 years of experience in the pharmaceutical and informatics industries. As a practice lead, Heather works very closely with our clients and software vendors to streamline workflows, ensure effective cross-functional communications, and drive successful implementation. So Heather, you can pick it up from here and finish the introduction, and I'll sit back and enjoy the presentation with the rest of the audience.
Sounds good. Thank you. Welcome, everybody. I'm excited to be talking to you today. We have a number of things we're going to talk through. We're going to look at some challenges that are shared in the industry in regulatory information management. We're going to talk about what it means to bridge that gap and with an end-to-end solution, and some critical steps to ensure your successful future state. And then we'll kind of wrap it up with some key takeaways and a question on how to get started. Okay, so the challenge. So at Astrix, we have the opportunity to work with many organizations across the pharmaceutical and life science industry, and we often hear common themes. The challenges associated with regulatory submissions are shared regardless of what organization you belong to. And if you're here in this webinar, you're likely feeling this strain in your organization, and you're looking for a way to alleviate that pain of those daunting and resource-intensive tasks. So you're likely trying to determine your best path forward to bring together the disparate and often not well understood global processes, terminology, and tools. And your regulatory teams may be struggling to communicate, collaborate, and ultimately to get submissions out the door on time and with high fidelity. But you do accomplish these tasks and you get your submissions approved by the global health authorities. But the back and forth with correspondences are difficult to track. You might have health authority questions that are causing a scramble for information, and your teams might be putting in extra days of effort to collate information if you're trying to pull together a comprehensive history. If you're experiencing some of these challenges, just know that you're not alone. So what do you do about it? Well, the solution is really to look at an end-to-end regulatory information management system. And there's a way to close these gaps, improve your efficiency, and ensure the accuracy of your submissions across your global teams. So many organizations are already in the process of implementing or exploring these end-to-end regulatory information management solutions. And we're going to talk to you a bit about how to go about that. So imagine a world where users are able to plan, track, author, edit, publish, and submit documents all from one tool. And imagine those users can document their questions and responses with the health authority within the same system and all linked to a single record of truth. And that would allow you to easily produce audit trails and source documents. And so this may seem like a dream, and it is, and it's attainable. But if the appropriate foundations, both in your technical and organizational foundations, aren't in place, it can quickly become a nightmare. So where do you start? So some of you may already be embarking down this path, and some of you might just be starting on your journey. We're going to talk about 4 important pieces of the puzzle. So the answer might seem obvious. You need a plan. But there are nuances to look out for and to consider when putting these plans in place. So over the course of the next couple of slides, we're going to talk about these 4 critical steps that should not be missed on your journey. We'll talk about first what it means to define a vision, to identify your capabilities and determine the best technology to meet your needs. And we'll touch on implementation planning and execution. And finally, we'll discuss onboarding and user adoption. So first up, defining your vision. You're going to want to bring a group together and work with your leaders in your organization to develop a vision statement and guiding principles. And what you're really looking to do is collate succinct goals that you can keep in mind as you select and implement your future state. Things like, are you looking to speed up submission times? Is your goal to improve quality? Maybe it's both. Do you want to author more efficiently? Are there other goals that your specific organization are looking for as you get on the journey towards an end-to-end solution? And then while you're thinking about your goals, the next thing you want to be thinking about is getting a baseline of where you are today. So it's very easy to want to jump ahead and dive into the new, shiny, exciting possibilities of this future state, but I guarantee that you need to take a step back and get a strong sense of where you are now before embarking on the best path to improvement. We've seen many organizations get tripped up here because, well, you don't know what you don't know. And with global processes, various tools, spreadsheets, SharePoints, emails, the list goes on and on and on. It's very easy to miss a critical piece of the puzzle if you don't do this step back and have a plan. So starting with defining the scope of your work and following up with business processes, you also want to take a look at things like your system landscape, your issues, gaps, and areas of opportunity. So those things that you don't know become apparent as you build this as-is state. And only then can you leverage what you've learned from that as-is state and your vision and guiding principles to bring those together and define what that future state, that to be, looks like. And then depending on how you're going to go about implementing, You might need a different level of detail in your future state, but my recommendation would be to start at a high level, map out what you're looking to do from a high level process flow, and then dive in deeper as you need. This can be an iterative process as you learn more about your organization's needs, the vendor capabilities, as you get towards your solution selection, and even global regulations. You can iterate back on that future state and add detail as you learn more. So another piece of that puzzle is identifying the capabilities. What do we actually need to bridge that gap, and who can help us get there? So in order to start defining the capabilities that are needed to get to that future state vision, you need to be thinking, are there capabilities that you have today that you need to maintain? Are there capabilities that are new that you'd like to add? Are there things like analytics, reporting, workflow orchestration, these foundational technologies that you'll need to bridge that gap between what you're doing today and where you really want to be in the future? And when you have that list, write it down. I think that's easy to overlook, but make sure you're documenting what your needs are so you can then better assess the vendors as you move forward into that solution selection. And it's very possible that you already have a good sense of the market in this space and you have some ideas of what you're looking for. But if you're in the solution selection piece of the puzzle, you also want to take a breath here. So there might be some vendors who have reached out and provided demonstrations. You might already be working with a particular vendor in other areas and have had a good experience. But just like taking the time to assess your current state and understand where you are, it's important to take time to fully assess the technology. And although this could be a daunting task in itself, I know solution selection can be a bit scary, it really is worth taking the time to look for and evaluate the solutions that are based on those capabilities that I just mentioned. This will allow you to evaluate the technologies based on your specific needs. Foundationally, your organizations share many of the same needs, but the way that each organization implements them or needs to address them can be different. So you want to really be looking at these technologies based on what your organization needs and how it fits into the larger picture. So create the plan. Well, this is a step that can happen at a lot of different points in your process. You might already have a plan. You might be building it as we speak. You might be going to work on it after this call. But we think of these project plans as living documents, and you're going to want to iterate on them as you learn more. So although you might have a good idea of where you're going, there's guaranteed to be pitfalls and surprises along the way. So you start with this plan and you may need to adjust accordingly to keep the momentum. As part of that strategy and plan, you'll need to think about who's needed to support this implementation. And not just from an IT perspective. Of course, you're going to need IT representatives on your team, but you're also going to need business support. You're going to need people who can act as subject matter experts. You're going to need leadership from the business who can provide critical information and feedback throughout the implementation process. And you also need to think about the size of your team. And that really depends entirely on your scope of work. So think back to the vision slide, to the current state, to your capabilities. Who do you need on your team to represent those areas that you'd like to improve? So now that we have our team, right, the teams need to know what they're working on. So on a large project like an end-to-end regulatory information management system implementation, there's going to be a lot of work going on in parallel. So we need to think about work streams and roadmaps. So are you going to tackle multiple improvements at once? Are you going to do that consecutively? What's more important than the other? Is authoring more important to your organization than submission planning and tracking? Maybe you already have a piece of the puzzle that does that well, and it can wait to join the end-to-end solution until later. What about things like publishing, validation, archiving? Are those in scope for your improvements? Are they part of your end-to-end solution? These are things that you want to be thinking about back when you do your vision and capabilities, so you can assess them as part of your vendor solution. And then when it comes to planning the roadmap, this is where that prioritization and timing comes into play. There really is no one right answer here. And each organization has their own priorities and abilities and even limitations that need to be considered when developing the plan of attack. So I'd recommend defining projects and performing prioritization exercises with your stakeholders prior to finalizing plans. And remember to keep an open mind. Projects and plan details may need to be reevaluated and adjusted as you follow through on the implementation. So make sure you have a strong project manager or two on your team to help keep everyone aligned and moving forward. So we've touched on 3 of the 4 topics I wanted to talk about today. And the last one is managing the change. So once you identify your capabilities, plan your roadmap, get your teams together, start that implementation, even after you completed your implementation, how do you keep users using the system and happy? What are the barriers to that change that are going to limit the use of your end-to-end system? We want to consider all of this when we're thinking about what impacts the users. So at this point, let's assume that you've launched your implementation. You're in the process of putting these capabilities into your end-to-end solution, and you want to get users using it. So it's smooth sailing ahead, right? Your users are going to jump on board as soon as they see how amazing the new solution is. I know everyone on the IT team will have seen it. Your business stakeholders will be bought in, but what about your everyday user? They're going to love it, right? Maybe not so much. You're imparting a change to them. They like their current system, they know how to use it, and now they need to use something different. And although it may be offering a lot of benefits, that change can be scary. So it's important to consider all of your stakeholders, not just your champions, not just the leadership, but everyone who's impacted by the system change. So you'll need to work with those champions and those subject matter experts to develop things like training materials, to develop and conduct that training, to work with those users to make sure that they feel comfortable with the change to the new system. You also want to ensure that appropriate migrations are occurring from different tools that might become out of date. So SharePoints, spreadsheets, legacy tools and systems, LANs, anywhere that people might be storing information. And as you go through your current state, you might uncover quite a bit. You want to make sure that that information is being pulled into your end-to-end solution efficiently, because it will make your transition so much more seamless. If your users, 1, know how to use the system, and 2, can access the information they need, and then 3, have the support they need by your champions and your subject matter experts, your transition will be much more smooth, and your users are more likely to use your end-to-end solution. So how do you understand what they need? Well, you need to do a stakeholder analysis. You need to make a registry of all of your stakeholders, their motivations, their level of influence, their concerns, and you can use those insights to develop and execute on a robust communications plan. And that communications plan should be designed to inform the stakeholders and bring them along on your journey. So it could be as simple as making sure that you send email reminders for users to get their training. It could be as large as putting together a newsletter that goes out monthly to help keep everyone on the same page and understanding all of the great things that are being implemented in your end-to-end solution. But it is important to tailor these communications to your audience so you ensure that they have the right level of detail and the right information so that they have what they need and they know you're listening to their concerns. But it's not a one and done activity, and you do need to make sure that you continue to check in with your impacted stakeholders so that if they have feedback that helps inform improvements in the system or helps make their lives easier, you're listening to them and you're helping them along and you're giving them the support they need as they embark on this change as well. And that's going to happen throughout the implementation and even beyond that implementation so that you're managing this change efficiently over time. So some key takeaways. I know that we went over a lot and there was a lot of information in each of those 4 steps. So I wanted to boil it down to a couple of the key things that if you're going to remember from this talk, these are what you should know. The first one is slow down to speed up, which I know seems counterintuitive, but in order to be successful, you're going to need to take the time to assess your current state, plan your implementation, evaluate your potential solutions. All of the steps in the process to support the end goal are needed for that success. Slow down, make sure you're giving challenges the attention they need to be efficiently mitigated and to adjust your plan if needed. In the end, you'll actually move faster by having a plan in place. The second one is write it down. Document everything. And this goes along with number 1 as well. Take the time, no matter how tedious, to document things like your processes, your roles, responsibilities, your implementation plans, your communication plans, your legacy systems, your key stakeholders, the list goes on and on. And once you have that documentation, it'll help you plan for the future, but it'll also help you look back on this information and make better, more informed decisions as you work through your implementation plan and manage that change. And last, but certainly not least, don't bite off more than you can chew. So what I mean by that is prioritize. Prioritize your capabilities, prioritize your work streams, prioritize your configuration needs, prioritize your user groups that are going to be rolled out. Not everything can or should be done at once, so keep in mind when you're creating that implementation plan. It can be really tempting to fit it all into a short time frame because, well, it looks great on the Gantt chart, but can your teams handle it? Do they have the bandwidth to support the implementation while still maintaining their day jobs? If your teams are over allocated, you might ultimately find yourself running into some of the issues that we talked about, and that can ultimately delay the project. So you want to make sure you're planning accordingly, and don't forget to ask for help if you need it. If you're identifying blockers and there's a path forward, speak up. Make sure your leadership understands. Reach out to those who can help to keep your plan moving forward. So a quick recap here. The 4 topics we talked about: define your vision, identify your capabilities, create and iterate on the plan, and make sure to continue to manage the change. So with that, I'm going to leave you with one final thought. Where are you in your journey towards an end-to-end RIM solution? And where do you want to be? Thank you. Questions?
That's great, Heather. I appreciate it. A couple things here, folks. For those who are on, who maybe missed the beginning of the session, we would encourage you to ask questions. You would simply type your question into the question panel there on the right-hand side of your screen, and we would do our best to answer it. I'm going to go ahead and get the recording.